Hello everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. If you're one of my regular viewers, you noticed I did not do a Canadian album from 391 to 400, where normally 400 would have been an album. I decided to do the collection of Typo Negative's first two releases. Well, I'm going to make up for that by doing a triple live album from Rush. And not just triple live album, I mean, we're talking triple live compact disc. So this would work out to I don't know how many vinyl. Alright. I've actually covered a lot of these songs already. This, for the most part, not all of it, two of the discs, are from the 97 tour for Test for Echo. There's a couple other songs in there that do pop up that are from other tours or other shows, but most of them were recorded at the World Music Theater in Tinley Park, Illinois. Like I said, I'll point out as we go through on the ones that aren't. The third disc, however, was recorded in 1978 at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, England. Not to be confused with London, Ontario, which is like, 200 kilometers or so away from me. Maybe a little over. 240-ish, maybe. Anyways, not the point. Okay, let's go on. So I'm just going to give you all the tracks in here, and I'm going to talk about this album a little differently, because a lot of these songs I've talked about already, so there's no point in really going into the songs. But there are certain things worth mentioning. All right, so we got Dreamline, which then goes into Limelight, which then goes into Driven, which then goes into Bravado. Now, Bravado is the first song that is not from the Music World show. This one was recorded on April 30th, 1994 at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. If I didn't mention, my apologies, the Music World Theater, so basically like the first two discs, for the most part were recorded June 14th, 1997. So let's continue on. All right. After Bravado, we get into Animate. Then we get into Show Don't Tell. That was recorded February 27th, 1994 at the Miami Arena. That is followed by The Trees, which was recorded on May 24th, 97 at the Coca-Cola Starplex Amphitheater in Dallas. Nobody's Hero, which to this day, believe it or not, is still one of my absolute favorite songs, and I absolutely love the rendition on here. Then Closer to the Heart. Closer to the Heart, I'm going to stop here. I know I wasn't going to say too much of the music. All the songs up to Nobody's Hero, great live renditions, fantastic. Basically, more or less kind of like just listening to the album, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, a little more than that. But it's Nobody's Hero is the first time where you notice there's a discernible difference between the album cut and the live cut. And it's basically more stripped back, more acoustic. It sounds beautiful. I absolutely love it. Then you go into Closer to the Heart, and that's got a great jam on the end of it. I love Closer to the Heart. One of those songs that it's kind of hit and miss with Rush fans. If you're a 70s Rush fan, like I tend to consider myself, you're not going to be into Closer to the Heart as much. If you're an 80s Rush fan, which I'm an early 80s Rush fan, not a mid to late 80s Rush fan, you're gonna love it as well, but I'm kind of hit and miss, It is still a good song. I love the jam out at the end. It makes it great. And then from there, we go into 2112. Recorded June 23rd, 1997 at Great Woods Center for the Performing Arts in Mansfield, Massachusetts. This is the first time ever on an album that Rush recorded the entirety of 2112. Now, the discovery part is not the same as it was on the album. Let's be very clear. Because the album's a lot more experimental with it, has a little more fun. The discovery part on here, done in a variation that would be much better live, as far as I'm concerned. The whole way around, sadly, my father and I, at this particular time, due to a family bullshit squabble, weren't really talking that much. If my dad and I had been on better terms in 97 when this tour was going on, because they promoted the hell out of the fact that they were performing 2112 in its entirety. If my dad and I had been on better terms, I guarantee my dad and I would have gone to this concert. Unfortunately, in 97, I wasn't in the greatest position to go to concerts on my own, especially ones that were over in the States. And I would have had to go over to the States to see Rush for this tour, or I would have had to travel up to Toronto. 4-hour train ride at the time would have cost the same amount as a 4-hour train ride now does, which is disturbing. Actually, might even cost more. Plane ride would have been no better, and I don't drive, so yeah. And then going to the States required identification, which I did do some concerts in the States at this time, but getting to the shows were a pain in the ass if you didn't drive, unless they were right in downtown Detroit. And there weren't a lot of concerts in downtown Detroit at that time. There are a hell of a lot more now. We're going to get into this a little bit more coming up, actually, in one of the other songs momentarily. Okay, so that's the first album. The first disc finishes off with a complete finish of 2112. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. Disc 1, believe it or not, out of the two, I'm going to say this up front. Out of the two of these, Disc 1, I basically skipped to the trees, listen to the trees to the end, and that's it. I don't listen to a lot of the other songs at the beginning. It has nothing to do with the fact that they're newer Rush either. I don't listen to a lot of the songs at the beginning just because I was never a huge fan of Limelight. Like, it's not a bad tune, but it's okay. Dreamline, not a bad way to open up the album, don't get me wrong. Driven is a good song. Bravado is one of those ones I don't know if how much I'm really into that one. Animate, yeah. Show Don't Tell, I don't mind that one. It works well in the live setting, but not one of the songs of theirs I'm overly into. And then, like I said, we're now into the trees. I love Nobody's Hero. I love Closer to the Heart. I do enjoy it live. And then 2112, baby. Hell yeah. All right. In honor of Neil Peart. Perfect timing. Okay. The Ghost Rider. Okay. Moving on to Disc 2. Disc 2, once again, we are all at the same concert still. This is still all, until I note otherwise, this is all June 14th, 1997, at the World Music Theater in Tinley Park, Illinois. Okay, so we got Test for Echo. Good tune. I enjoy Test for Echo. Love it. Glad they threw it in here. Next up, Analog Kid, recorded March 22nd, 1994 at the Palace of Auburn Hills in Michigan. In Auburn Hills. Now, everybody would say, oh, it's Detroit. You know, whenever you see a t-shirt, concert t-shirt, it would always say Detroit, Michigan. It was actually in Auburn Hills. Auburn Hills was about 45 minutes outside of Detroit if the traffic was flowing well. It used to be the home of the Pistons until they moved the Pistons back into downtown Detroit. The Palace of Auburn Hills doesn't even exist anymore. I was there for 2 different concerts, though. Sadly, Rush was not one of them. I was at the Palace of Auburn Hills for AC/DC on the Ballbreaker tour, and I was also there for Metallica on the Load tour. It was a great venue, loved it very much. Analog Kid would have played out there very well. One of those Rush songs, once again, I'm so about. Free Will follows that up, so. Roll the Bones. Okay, I like Roll the Bones. It was one of the songs that helped bring Rush back. Detroit rock stations played an edited version where they cut out the rap section of it, which I do understand. I think it was silly though. I think it was cool. I think it was a great little bit of experimentation. It's not like Rush kept up with it. It was something that Neil wanted to play with. They did it. I like when they play live, the fact that they would actually walk off stage during that part, for the most part. Just let a video play of it, which was cool as well. Then you get to Stick It Out. Stick It Out. Ooh, this was the reason I rushed out to buy the Counterparts album. No pun intended on the rush. Stick It Out was a great song. Absolutely fantastic song. But I don't think it's held up so well over the years. I don't think it's aged as well. I think it's a little dated, kind of has a little bit of that grungy-ish kind of vibe to it. Then we get into Resist. This was recorded July 2nd, 1997 at the Molson Canadian Amphitheatre in Toronto. Now, this is an important date that I have to mention here. July 2nd would be the day after Canada Day. Canada Day is July 1st, right? So Rush would have been at home chilling in Toronto, Canada for Canada Day. And then on July 2nd, they would have tore the house down in their hometown at the Molson Canadian Amphitheatre. Now, it is not the Molson Canadian Amphitheatre anymore. I do not remember what it is called now, but it is a wonderful venue. It is where I saw Iron Maiden when I got to see them last time I saw them on the Legacy of the Beast tour. Before the whole pandemic thing. Moving on from... Oh, and Resist. This one's cool as well because they really do go stripped back and they go acoustic on this one. Totally acoustic. It's great. Absolutely love it. Then you go into the Leave That Thing Alone instrumental. This was recorded at the Great Woods Center for the Performing Arts in Mansfield, Massachusetts on June 23rd, 1997. The Rhythm Method, which is listed as an instrumental, but realistically, this is Neil Peart's drum solo. Love that, man. To this day, still one of my absolute favorite tracks to listen to off of this set. Natural Science, great tune, especially if you're into that time period and whatnot for Rush. Cool that they played it live, totally got into that. Then you've got Spirit of the Radio. Cool, cool, cool. Tom Sawyer, Hells to the Yeah. My one disappointment with this entire collection, one song, should have been recorded and represented from somewhere else, just for the cliche of it, was not. YYZ. I am disappointed that there is not a version of YYZ on here recorded in Toronto. That is a little bit heartbreaking for me, because for those that don't know, YYZ is the 3-letter code for the Pearson International Airport in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Also, one of the most killer Rush songs ever. Instrumental, basically. The drums and the bass with the guitar giving some kick-ass sound through. Oh. Hi guys, this is editing Christian Eschbach. Doing a little punch in here. If you notice, I keep saying YYZ. It should technically be YYZ. Canadians, it's a big thing about Canadians saying Z instead of Z. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario. Almost all of my media until I was about 10, 11 years old was almost strictly American media, with the exception of Sesame Street, Mr. Dress Up, one or two other shows on CBC up until I was like in kindergarten, because they finished playing at like noon, if I remember correctly. So up until then, I got some Canadian media on CBC, but not a lot. So I grew up saying Z instead of Z. To this day, there are some people in Canada that will correct me for saying Z instead of Z, as I am Canadian, but that is one of the reasons I say it. The other reason why I am stressing and talking about this is I don't say Zed, and I've never corrected myself on Zed, because to me, Zed is the name of some redneck hillbilly. Go watch Pulp Fiction. That's Zed to me, okay? Go watch Pulp Fiction, and that is Zed. When I hear the word Zed or the letter Z or anybody says Zed, that is what goes through my mind is that redneck hillbilly. I hear Z, I don't think anything about it. So, I just wanted to punch this in here. Back to the review. All right, we go into track 3. Track 3. This was recorded February 20, or not track 3, sorry. Disc 3. Recorded February 20th, 1978, so before I was even born, in London at the Hammersmith Odeon. Now, there is a reason I absolutely love this particular disc. I have Rush's All the World's a Stage, which is the first double live that they released, and I believe it was released in 96. I could be wrong. I'm not going to check at the moment. And then I've also got Exit Stage Left, which was in 81 or 82. I guess I'm going to be putting up the corrector hingy here. This falls kind of in between the two of them, which is kind of nice. So I've got a nice assortment of Rush songs where I can kind of hear, how it's kind of progressed and how the sound quality progressed and stuff like that over the years and whatnot. And let's be honest, the sound quality on here is better than the sound quality on both All the World's a Stage and Exit Stage Left. So, this album contains Bastille Day, By-Tor and the Snow Dog, Xanadu. They never play Xanadu. Farewell. If you're a Rush fan, you got that joke. Farewell to Kings, Something for Nothing, Cygnus X1, Anthem, Working Man, Fly By Night, In the Mood, and Cinderella Man. Fly By Night, In the Mood, and Cinderella Man are played as a medley, and By-Tor and the Snow Dog kind of does a direct segue into Xanadu. The whole way around, honestly, you gotta get this. There are a lot of Rush albums, a lot of Rush live albums out there, especially in the later part of the Rush years, because they basically started releasing an album, a live DVD, bare minimum, to correspond with every album as they went over the years. And that is cool. Iron Maiden does the same thing. If you've got the loyal fan base that those bands have, you can do that. And with the show and presentation that Rush does, well, they themselves don't do a lot of show and presentation. If you're actually watching the stage, it's fantastic. This is a great live representation, and for 3 discs, this was one of the best purchases I ever made. Now, I don't know if they did an update or not, or they removed it or not for re-releases and reissues over the years, but there is one of the discs on here. I believe it's the Hammersmith disc. I can't remember 100%. One of the 3 discs actually had cool enhanced media on it, and unfortunately, I can't run it on my computer because of how outdated it is. It's from the 90s, right? And it uses programs the computers don't run anymore. They, just like QuickTime. All right, so here's some of the inside work. And then this is the Hammersmith disc. Really cool. I believe there was a little booklet that came, or a little fold out that came with it as well, that kind of resembled parts of the back of this. And unfortunately, I believe I've lost it over the years, which unfortunately happens. I bought this when it first came out, and for the longest time, I thought this was going to be the last Rush album. There was a lot of debate on whether or not this would end up being the last Rush album, because unfortunately, Neil Peart's life really turned upside down for a real long time there, and it was what it was. Okay, folks, this is where I am going to wrap this one up. I definitely think you should buy this album. I think it is worth owning. I think the fact that it is the only album that has the full version of 2112 on it is what makes it worth picking up. Not to mention some of the other tracks are just awesome. Alright, folks, I'm done. Let me know what you think. Comments below. Yes, R30 is fantastic. R40 was fantastic as well. I am not knocking on those. I'm not knocking on All the Worlds of Stage, and I'm not knocking on Exit Stage Left as well. I know there's also other ones in there I'm forgetting to mention. Not knocking on any of those. What I'm saying is, you need to own this, and realistically, you should own every other one I just mentioned. Maybe not R40. Definitely R30. Yeah, okay, R40. All right, folks, done. That's it. Comments below. Patreon down below. There's a link in the section, whatever. Like button, subscribe button, bell for notifications. If you're watching this on Rumble, there is the join button and the follow button, I think, or something like that. Yeah. Locals, you're probably not watching this there. All right, folks. Peace, love, take care.